What if I told you that the sound of your voice was way more than just, well, words? What if it was actually a personal blueprint holding clues to your physical and emotional state? That's the wild idea behind bioacoustics, a field we're going to dive into today, which suggests that your vocal patterns might just reveal the state of your well-being.
So let's just get right to the heart of it. We spend so much time focusing on what we say, right? But this system, it asks us to think about how we say it. Could the frequencies and tones in our voice, the stuff we don't even consciously control, be telling a much deeper story about what's going on inside? The whole philosophy behind this is actually pretty simple when you break it down. It all starts at the atomic level. Everything moves. And where there's movement, you get friction. Where there's friction, you get a frequency. And where there's frequency, you get sound. So if you follow that logic, our bodies aren't just solid objects. They are, in a very real sense, a complex symphony of different frequencies.
To really unpack all this, here's our game plan. We'll start with this idea of the voice as a blueprint. Then we'll look at two ancient frameworks they used to make sense of it all, the 5 elemental forces and the 7 energy centers. After that, we'll see how a modern tool called Nano Voice tries to decode this information. And finally, we'll talk about the whole point of this, retuning your system for better balance.
Okay, first up, let's lay the groundwork. Before we get into any of the fancy tools or ancient charts, we need to really get our heads around this core concept. The idea that your voice is like a personal blueprint, and how your health might be fundamentally tied to sound. Now, before we go any further, it is absolutely crucial to be clear about something the source material itself really hammers home. Everything we're talking about today is for informational purposes only. This is not, I repeat, not a substitute for professional medical advice. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure anything. We're simply exploring a system of thought, not handing out medical guidance. Okay? Good. At the very heart of this system is this idea of adaptive energy. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is like your body's personal battery. It's the juice you've got to deal with everything life throws at you, whether that's a crazy deadline, a family argument, or just the stress of your daily commute. And this plugs directly into what scientists call the general adaptation syndrome. When a stressor hits, your body has this initial whoa moment, the alarm reaction. Then it digs in for the long haul, the stage of resistance, where it's coping and adapting. But, and this is the important part, if that stress just doesn't let up, it can push your body into a stage of exhaustion. That's when your battery, your adaptive energy, gets drained, and your whole system's defenses start to weaken. So how in the world do you even begin to figure out what's going on with this energy? Well, the system we're exploring pulls from two big ancient frameworks. The first one comes from Taoist philosophy, the 5 elemental forces. You've got wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And this is where you can see how elegant the system is. It's called the law of creation. Just follow the arrows here. See how it flows? Water nourishes wood. Wood feeds fire. The ash from fire creates earth, earth produces metal, and metal carries water. It's this beautiful, self-sustaining loop. But, to keep any one element from getting too big for its britches, there's also a law of control. Think of it like a checks and balances system. For example, fire is said to control metal because it can melt it, and water controls fire by putting it out. This is supposedly how the whole system keeps itself in balance. And this is where these kind of abstract ideas connect right back to us as people. Each of these elements is believed to be linked to specific emotions. So if the water element is out of whack, for instance, it might show up as fear. If the wood element is imbalanced, it could be related to feelings of anger or frustration. All right, so that's the first framework. The second one used in this system comes from Ayurvedic tradition, and it focuses on what it calls the 7 energy centers. You've probably heard of them by their more common name, chakras. The word chakra, it's Sanskrit for wheel or vortex. And in this system, it's talking about these spinning centers of energy that are thought to make up our consciousness and our whole energetic body. You can see here they're pictured running right up the spine, from the very base all the way to the crown of the head. The basic idea is that each one of these centers governs a different aspect of our life, from our most basic survival instincts down at the bottom to our higher consciousness up at the top. Okay, so we have these two really complex ancient systems, one from Taoism, one from Ayurveda. The big question is, how does any of this connect back to analyzing your voice? Well, that's where the modern tool at the center of all this comes in, a piece of software called Nano Voice. So here's how it's said to work. A person just talks into a microphone for about 30 seconds. The software then analyzes all the frequencies in their voice. What it's looking for are the frequencies, which correspond to notes on a musical scale that are either showing up way too much or not nearly enough.
And this is what the results look like. Each of those vertical bars is a different musical note, a specific frequency. And the way the system reads this is pretty straightforward. Those high green bars are seen as an excess of energy in that frequency, maybe pointing to stress or inflammation. On the other hand, the low red bars are interpreted as deficiencies, suggesting that part of the system is tired, depleted, or just plain exhausted.
Okay, so what is the point of all this? Once you have this vocal blueprint, this chart of highs and lows, what do you actually do with it? Well, the stated goal of the whole system is to use this information to help retune your body.
The source material is really specific about the language that should be used here, and this chart makes it crystal clear. The idea is to stay away from medical terms. You don't diagnose, you assess. You don't treat, you support. It's a very deliberate choice of words to keep this work firmly in the world of wellness and education, not medical practice.
And that really brings us to the whole point. By spotting these supposed excesses and deficiencies in the voice, the ultimate goal is to give a client information that might help them find their way back to a state of internal balance, harmony, and just overall wellness. So, after all that, this whole idea from the world of bioacoustics leaves us with a pretty personal question to think about. If your body is basically a symphony of frequencies, what song is it singing today? Is it in tune, or could some parts use a little rebalancing? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.